Excellencies, ambassadors, fellow Africans, ladies and gentlemen. Heartfelt greetings to our live audience here at the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa and all African citizens watching this debate. On behalf of the panel of eminent Africans, it is an honor and a pleasure to welcome you all to the 2024 Mjadala Africa Leadership Debate. Tonight's event represents a critical milestone in our collective journey towards achieving the Africa we want under Agenda 2063. I must say, now more than ever before, we need a united Africa and an effective AU Commission. The world we live in is at a crossroads with many complex situations. This continent of ours has gone through numerous challenges in its history. Its people have paid huge sacrifice to be where we are today. The trajectory of going out of colonial legacy to move to the Africa we want stands as testimony. We understand that our dreams and aspirations will not take us anywhere unless we come together. I had the immense pleasure as a young cadet of having seen the birth of the organization, the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, and followed its transformation to the African Union. I have seen their highs and lows. But one thing is for sure, if the African Union had not existed, we would have had to invent it. We have a long way to go to reach the Africa we want by 2063. The African Union Commission, our only vehicle to take us to our destination, has to be strong and fit for the purpose. We have to face together our current and future challenges, narrow inequalities, build more just and inclusive societies, resolve conflicts, in short, provide to our citizens what they are expecting. It has become more and more clear that the African Union has a rightful place on the global stage. It has become a partner that can't be easily pushed aside. We are claiming our place where decisions are made regarding our continent. Africa is coming out of age. This evening, the three candidates to the post of the chairpersonship of the African Union Commission are going to participate in a debate. I regret that the fact that our continent couldn't also have a female candidate and place the African Union Commission on the right side of history. This is a serious homework we have to take into consideration. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have the greatest honor and privilege to thank the general public for participating and for their interest in this process by sending questions. I would also like them to know that the concerns expressed by the public are taken care of in the questions. And now, ladies and gentlemen and excellencies, I have the duty and the honor to hand over to the moderators the questions sealed envelope. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, Excellency Kanji Senior Judges. Dear participants, what we're going to see here, what Madam Kanji Senior Judges is going to do now, is to actually give to us an envelope that contains all the questions that we are going to ask. That is, either Anita or me will be asking the potential candidates who are vying for the position of the chairperson of the African Union Commission. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Fatima has outlined, Her Excellency the Ambassador has handed over the questions that have been curated by an independent panel. As we mentioned, there will be 4 rounds, and here in my hand we have 4 envelopes sealed, and these envelopes will only be opened at the forefront of each one of the rounds.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, Anita. Ladies and gentlemen, at the moment, we are going to introduce the various candidates vying for the position of chairperson of the African Union Commission. His Excellency Mahamadou Ali Yusuf, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Djibouti. Your Excellency, His Excellency Mr. Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister of Kenya, and the third candidate will be His Excellency Richard James, the former Foreign Minister of Madagascar.
Pride and honor that we invite our 3 esteemed candidates to now take their position on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of welcoming Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Foreign Affairs Minister, Djibouti. Also joining us will be His Excellency Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister, Kenya. And we have His Excellency Richard J. Randriamandrato, who is from Madagascar. Ladies and gentlemen, with humility, I ask that you give them another round of applause. These are our candidates for the chairperson position of the African Union.
Messieurs, bonsoir et merci d'être parmi nous ce soir. Vous êtes en direct, des millions de téléspectateurs vous suivent à présent dans le Mjadala Africa Debate. Vous avez, comme présenté auparavant, 5 minutes chacun pour que vous vous présentiez. Alors on va commencer tout de suite avec vous, Excellence, Monsieur Mahmoud Ali Youssouf de Djibouti.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, honorable Raila Odinga, honorable Richard James, Madame la vice-présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Mesdames et Messieurs, citoyennes et citoyens de l'Afrique, bonsoir. Je m'appelle Mahmoud Ali Youssouf. J'ai 59 ans, marié, père de 8 enfants, ministre des Affaires étrangères de mon pays depuis 20 ans. Je me tiens devant vous ce soir pour vous exposer succinctement ma vision et les ambitions que je porte pour notre continent. L'Afrique se trouve à une étape cruciale de son évolution. Certes, en retard par rapport aux autres continents en matière d'intégration, de paix et de sécurité et de développement socio-économique. Mais l'Afrique avance, l'Afrique s'organise et l'Afrique se positionne sur la scène internationale. L'Afrique que nous voulons intégrer, pacifique et prospère.
First, the choice of our people before the choice of its leaders. The founding fathers of the OAU in 1963 and to our leaders today who actually established the African Union more than 20 years, all the way down to the average citizen, we are trying to consolidate our diversity. and to cement the unity of the continent. As we adopted Agenda 2063 and also the five plans, the African Union actually has a roadmap to achieve its goals. And the African Union is supposed to coordinate and also to implement the decisions of the policy organs. And if I am elected as chairperson of the Commission, I am going to make sure that we work together, and we actually have to go beyond the 37% of the work that we have done so far. In terms of peace and security and early warnings, through the Continental Early Warning System, we are going to strengthen the Peace and Security Council, which has to be more proactive, and the member states will also have to be responsible. The panel of the wilds would be given the means to work to continue its mediation work. And I will do my level best to make sure that resources are mobilized to make the African standby force operational. And we can also use the African Peace Fund. And with the relevant bodies, I am going to continue or to carry out the reforms which have not been implemented today. And I'm going to diversify our financing, and I will do my best to make sure that African Union has its own financing sources. And I'm also going to boost intra-African trade. We should go beyond 80%. And I will bring down all the non-tariff barriers and facilitate the free movement of goods and persons across the continent. The place of Africa on the international stage will be one of my...
Je serai la voix écoutée de l'Afrique à travers le monde. La transformation de notre continent aux femmes et notre diaspora par les moyens du savoir, des techniques et des technologies en agriculture, en industrie et dans les services. L'Afrique que nous voulons, mesdames et messieurs, est l'Afrique de la paix, de l'intégration et de la prospérité passe d'abord.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an Africa of peace, integration, and prosperity. And this has to go through the political will and the solidarity of the African people, and thanks to the support of our people. And so as I stand in front of you today and in front of all the millions of Africa, I want to tell you that if I'm given the chance of being the chairperson of this commission, I will do my best to make sure that our continent shines on the international stage. I thank you.
Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite His Excellency Raila Odinga to share his opening remarks. Your Excellency, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Your Excellency Ambassador Konjit, my co-panelist here, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and His Excellency Mr. Richard, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Africa. Africa, hamjambo, bonsoir, salam alaikum, rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuh. Boa noite. I am delighted to have opportunity today to stand before you as the son of Africa. I was born in Kenya, but I'm told that my grandparents, a grandfather of 5 and a husband of 1 that I know of. I am an engineer by profession, and I have been an academic. I have also been a public servant. I've been a member of parliament. I've also been a prime minister and also leader of opposition. In those capacities, I've tried to do my best, and I've gained a lot of experience in terms of management of public affairs. I stand here as an Pan-Africanist and an Afro-optimist. 2 months ago, that is on the 21st of October, this year we were here in Addis Ababa. We had been invited as members of the families of the founding fathers of the African Union to come and witness the reopening of the Africa Hall. That's the hall where the OAU was launched in 1963. And we're happy to be here with Madam Ambassador Konjit, who was there as a young girl at that time. It is now 61 years since the launch of the Organization of African Unity. And at that time, if you read the speeches of the founding fathers on that day, they were very passionate, and all of them talked about African unity. Where there was a difference was, when do we achieve this unity? There are those who, under the school of thought, that the unity now. And those who said, no, we need to be gradual in this. Let us first build the building blocks, the regional unions, which will eventually translate into formation of the African Union as a whole. But now we have come up, they came up 50 years later with Vision 2063, which now hopes to get Africa united, one union government by 2030, and move on to attain the vision, the wishes of the founding fathers of Africa. I say that I have the experience. I've been part of this movement for changing the continent. We know that some achievements have been made. Africa is now completely liberated, but there's still work to do. And I believe that I have what it takes to get us where we want to do. In the field of education, in the field of health, in the field of value addition to the abundant wealth that we have on the continent, in the field of trade, inter-African trade. I have acted as the African Union High Representative on infrastructure. And in this I know that we have very comprehensive programs in PIDA, Program for Infrastructure Development of the continent. What remains is action. And what I want to promise the African people is that I am going to lead from the front to ensure that we achieve the visions of the founding fathers of our continent. I thank you.
Merci infiniment au candidat du Kenya, Excellence Monsieur Raila Amolo Odinga. Et maintenant, Mesdames et Messieurs,
Raila Amolo Odinga. Now we're going to listen to His Excellency Randriamandrato from Madagascar.
Excellence,
Excellencies, distinguished guests, to this very important event for the African people. As you can see, we are 3 candidates, not 2 candidates, like you see on social media. And we are standing in front of you today to convince you of how serious we are and how seriously we're going to work towards the African Union involvement. So who am I? I am one out of 1.2 billion Africans. Just like you, I started from very humble beginnings, from the very beginning. I was a young consultant. I was a researcher in microfinance sector, and I traveled across many African capitals, about 41 countries in the year 1989. Just like you, it was difficult for me to find a job, but I did find a job which was at the level of my capacity. And just like you, I actually built my career based on my conviction that each African citizen can actually survive. And just like you, today, I am standing before you because I believe that I have the confidence and the trust of the president of Madagascar, and I am proud. I am proud that I was actually supported by my country. Just like you, I've actually come a long way, and I have actually gotten to this level where I have the trust of my government. I was Minister of the Economy in my country because that is my specialty. I was also Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I'm here today standing before you to talk about Africa. Africa is actually the second dynamic economic region in the world, and is actually making progress. And things are changing in our favor. And recently, I read about the funding of the African Development Bank, funding several projects in Africa. And this is quite promising for the continent. The World Bank also has increased its envelope, funding 75 countries, 75 less developed countries. And I also think that we have funding for small states. Small state, that's not a pejorative term, but
l'Afrique qui bouge, c'est d'abord les États qui réalisent ces performances. Une croissance économique qui va de 3,5 à 4% par an en 2025, c'est déjà suffisant, mais il faut faire plus. Et puis, il y a la maison commune, notre maison commune. Nous y sommes, c'est l'Union africaine. Ce que je constate, c'est qu'il y a une Afrique qui progresse, qui se développe, qui est dynamique, et une Union africaine où on doute de sa capacité à suivre ce progrès. Je me présente parce que je pense qu'il est indispensable que ceux qui pensent avoir la qualité, les compétences, l'expérience et la conviction, eh bien, aujourd'hui, je pense les détenir et j'espère que vous serez convaincus de notre candidature. Et je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Richard Randriamandrato from Madagascar. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this officially brings us to the beginning of our debate, where we move into the first round of questions. But before then, allow us to reiterate the rules and the guidelines for you, our esteemed candidates. You each have 4 minutes to answer the questions that will be posed, and you will each answer the absolute same question. Your Excellencies, with respect and humility, if you surpass the 4-minute mark, myself or my colleague will have to interrupt your response. And this eventually brings us to this moment, ladies and gentlemen, where my colleague and I will open the envelope for the first round of questions.
Thank you, Anita. Merci infiniment à nos chers candidats qui viennent de se présenter à vous, mesdames et messieurs, et honorables assistance. Comme vient de le rappeler ma chère consoeur Anita Erskine, eh bien, tout de suite, nous allons ouvrir, mesdames et messieurs, le premier round de questions. Nous allons rappeler que les questions ont été rédigées en langue française et en langue anglaise. Elles ont été rédigées par un panel indépendant. Les enveloppes nous ont été parvenues tout à l'heure par son Excellence, Madame l'ambassadeur Kojit Sine-Georgis, et tout de suite avec Anita, nous allons choisir une enveloppe, Anita, pour poser la première question.
Esteemed candidates, your question in English, and after that my colleague here, Fatima, will translate in French. Translating Africa's natural wealth into continental prosperity, Africa has everything it needs to feed her people, educate her children, and take care of her health. Yet, the reality defies this. How will you turn the continent's resource wealth into tangible benefits, reducing debt, ensuring sustainable financing for the African Union, and enabling Africa to control its destiny economically? Also, how will you ensure that the African Continental Free Trade Area achieves its goals?
Excellences, Messieurs les candidats, la question en langue française. L'Afrique a tout ce dont elle a besoin pour nourrir sa population, éduquer ses enfants et prendre soin de leur santé. Mais la réalité défie cela. Comment allez-vous transformer la richesse en ressources du continent en avantages tangibles, réduire la dette, assurer un financement durable pour l'Union africaine et permettre à l'Afrique de contrôler son destin économique? En outre, comment allez-vous garantir que la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine atteigne ses objectifs? Et on commence avec le premier candidat de Madagascar. Excellence, vous avez 4 minutes pour y répondre.
Cette question relève de l'aspiration 1, la première aspiration de l'agenda 2063. Et donc, nous allons donner quelques éléments de réponse, peut-être pas dans sa totalité, puisque en 4 minutes, nous n'allons pas faire une démonstration académique de ce que nous voulons faire pour répondre à cette aspiration. L'aspiration 1 de l'agenda 2063 s'articule comme ceci: une Afrique prospère, fondée sur une croissance inclusive et un développement durable. Votre question est vaste. Comment est-ce qu'un président
with a very clear terms of responsibility, about 26 of those. And first of all, he or she has to demonstrate leadership characteristics, has to have administrative capacity, has to know protocol, has to be diplomatic. How can such a chairperson respond to such a huge question? I am an economist. I am a finance person by training. I do have some ideas to share. First of all, I can emphasize the importance of continuing to develop the economy at the continental level. You did mention our joint initiative about developing trade through, in theory, liberalization of trade, liberalization of the circulation of persons throughout our continent. In theory, I say trade can effectively become a source of economic dynamism. I think I understand that we're at about 12.6% of commercial trade between African countries. This is very low. For a continent such as Europe, a continent such as America, they go up to more than 50%. So what we need to do is to continue to continue with the efforts that we're doing. There's already a secretariat, the ICFTA. A secretariat, the ICFTA is just a geographical. It's ZoneNet is the geographical zone. We haven't yet attained this free circulation of trade, but if we manage to ensure that a free trade can happen and can happen very quickly, it is very possible that we shall triple our performance in economic development. I am a farmer. I have a fish and chickens, and at a very small scale. And I support young farmers. And it's very difficult to pretend that one can have a good quality and one can sell the products to the neighbors. People are not able to really exhaust what is available in the market. But free trade is that. It is to learn how to master the capital virtues, capitalism. Where do you find money, and what am I going to do to find the money? I think we need to start modestly. We need to start at the level of the local development, so that slowly by slowly, with support from the government and of course the support of the African Union, we shall then at the end ensure that all of the citizens, young, medium-aged, and especially women, can have the opportunity of participating in this large continental market. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
You, Excellency Raila Odinga, first for your answer. 4 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Africa is, of course, the least developed continent by comparison. Look at economic statistics. But this is because there are historical reasons why Africa is where it is today. And we will say that Africa does not need to remain here. We need to develop Africa. There are several factors which work against Africa. For example, the international financial infrastructure has worked very much against Africa, because African countries have been made to borrow money at a very high rate of interest compared to other countries of the same status as the African countries. So we need to address the issue of rearranging the international financial infrastructure. That is, I think, one of the major starting points. Now, Africa is the richest continent on the planet Earth in terms of raw materials. But it's a paradox that Africa also is the poorest in terms of living conditions. We say that we need not to remain for perpetually the source of raw materials for industrial west or east. That we need to do value addition to raw materials which are coming out of Africa before we export them. And then we've also said that Africa needs to trade more with itself. There's big potential. Like the African Development Bank today says that 7 out of the 20 fastest growing economies in this year are going to be African countries. They're much higher than Europe. We're only competing with Asia. So it is important that Africa enhances the trade with itself. The inter-African trade today stands at just mere 15%. Now we have the African Free Trade Area organization that was launched now 3 years ago, but not much has been achieved. Some of the reasons are issues that are actually solvable. The non-tariff barriers to trade that have been imposed by respective African countries. Things like standards, which are different from one country to the other country, making it difficult for goods to move freely across the borders. Then modalities of payment. And then there's the other issue of infrastructure. I worked for 5 years as the African Union High Representative on Infrastructure Development. And here is another problem, because goods cannot move freely because of lack of adequate infrastructure within the continent. Kenya exported tea to Ghana, and it took 3 months of tea to travel from Kenya to Ghana. We have major infrastructure projects, the high-speed continental railway, the inter-African highways, Cape to Cairo, Tunis to Cape, Dakar to Djibouti, Dakar, Lagos, Mombasa, and so on and so forth. All these need to be developed. Energy is another factor. Energy is too expensive, but we can reduce the cost of energy and go green in the continent.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Candidate from Kenya, et à présent, mesdames et messieurs.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the response from His Excellency, the candidate from Djibouti. When you talk about the riches of Africa, we often think about natural resources, and the riches of Africa begins with its people. We have 1.4 billion inhabitants on the continent, and more than 60% of this population is younger between 0 and 25 years. The first wealth of this continent is in its people. We must have the capacity to think about how we can ensure that these people, this population, can benefit not only from the existing wealth, but also add value to that wealth. How can we go about that? Through universal education, quality education in our countries. We should have the capacity of offering our citizens a free education from the primary to the university levels, and ensure that this education is spread in all over the regions of our continent and of our country. We must remove the obstacles to education. The feminine population represents 50.2%. There are still cultural obstacles. There are obstacles to the education of girls. So we must concentrate on valorizing our human resources. And then we have fertile land. What are we doing with this fertile land? We are still in many countries using very archaic agriculture. It is time to begin to develop an agriculture that I would call modern. It does exist in many countries. Look, for example, at a country such as Rwanda. Tea and coffee are actually, there's value added locally. Countries such as Ghana, countries such as Cote d'Ivoire, cocoa is transformed locally. Now, these raw products that we sell without adding value, we must be able to add value locally so that we can increase the wealth and also create employment. The transformation of agricultural products is a priority. So today, agriculture in many countries uses biotechnology. It uses the drip system. It uses seeds that are modified, that are quality seeds. Ethiopia uses quality seeds in order to be able to produce maize. Today, Ethiopia produces maize and wheat because of these seeds that are quality seeds. It is important to think about transforming agricultural product in place that will ensure that the people can get out of food insecurity, ensure that there is a specialized agriculture. There has to be areas of specialized agriculture, and that, I would say, is one of the steps that will lead to ensuring that this wealth can be at the benefit of the population. And then we come to natural resources. I acknowledge the work by President Museveni. He has said that he will not export petrol or gas as long as there will not be a refinery in Uganda. These are the examples from African leaders who take the destiny of their people in hand so that they can actually have value added locally. Now, trade, everybody knows that it is through trade that development happens. Look at China. China and all over the Chinese economy really target production and exportation. When you add value to our products, we can become exporters. Let me talk about tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. That is not the problem. I think that the situation must be to, first of all, protect our wealth by transforming them locally. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf.
Of round one, where I'm happy to announce we have a 5-minute break, and after this break we come to round two. You have been tuned in to us here from the African Union headquarters here in Addis Ababa, and we are bringing to you Mjadala Africa Leadership Debate 2024 with our 3 esteemed candidates vying for the position of chairperson of the African Union.
Merci infiniment, cher candidat.
Thank you very much, candidates, for having answered to the first question of the first round. Ladies and gentlemen, there's still 3 rounds to go in which you will all participate, and we're going to take a break of 5 minutes. We'll come back immediately after. Thank you very much for having listened to us. Thank you.
Shop for smart.
Structural engineer.